The husband returned from the Navy and caught his unfaithful wife in the act. My name is Robert Blake, but my few friends call me Bobby. I just finished 5 years in the Marine Corps, 3 combat tours as infantry. Yes, you read that right. 5 years, and 3 of them spent in gunfire. It's hard to believe I came back home without a scratch, not even a scraped knee. That's how they used to call me, bulletproof. Well, maybe physically, but mentally, that's a different story. I was diagnosed with anger issues caused by PTSD, and that's why I'm living with my grandmother out in the countryside, trying to work through some things. It's struggling to adjust to society, even my own family. At least my cousins don't get it. For instance, 2 weeks ago, I attended a small family gathering at my uncle's house. There were 4 cousins, all with their respective partners, except me. I hadn't met anyone yet. There was beer and loud music, and 2 of my cousins, who had just returned from a cruise in the Mediterranean guarding NATO's southern coast, were there. When they told their stories, it sounded like they saved the country from an invasion, maybe from the French, or who knows, the Greeks. They talked as if they'd just returned from a war. Could have been the 5 beers I'd had, or maybe I was just tired of hearing these guys talk about how tough it was standing guard in the cold heat at night. I got irritated and shared what I thought about their great act of patriotism. That's when one of the girlfriends asked what I'd done for my country. The silence was deafening. 5 years in the Marines, 3 tours in Vietnam as infantry. I killed men better than these 2 with my own hands. I helped my friends while a Navy medic tried to stop their bleeding, unsuccessfully. I helped put those same friends into body bags, carried them to a helicopter, and moved on. See? I told you I have issues. There was much more I wanted to say, but why bother? These guys would never understand. I got into my truck and drove away. Today, I find myself in front of the new Walmart. My grandmother needed new shoes, so I brought her here. While she's inside, I'm smoking my 3rd cigarette. Of course, I'm watching everything around me, a habit I'll never break. My eyes notice a couple arguing between 2 cars. I tell myself not to get involved, but their voices keep getting louder. I convince myself again to do nothing until she screams as he hits her. She falls to the ground, and he starts slapping her face, shouting for her to obey him when his foot was getting ready to kick her. When I reached them, I went around him and told him not to touch her again. Who the hell are you to tell me what I can do with my fiancé? He asked. I looked at the girl, who couldn't have been more than 18 or 20, her face swollen from crying. I reached out to help her up. She was about to grab my hand when he yelled, "Touch my girl and I'll kill you." A funny thought crossed my mind when he said that. I wondered how many guys over the past 5 years had thought the same thing. Challenge accepted. I grabbed her hand and pulled her up. He opened the truck door and she screamed. He has a knife. I looked and saw him holding a knife that looked like something out of a horror movie. Big curved blade, serrated on top. It didn't have the blood groove like the knife I'd trained with and carried for 5 years. I almost laughed and said, "Put the knife down and get in your truck, unless you want to spend the night in the hospital." He crouched and gripped the knife with both hands, switching from one hand to the other. "I'll cut you, you idiot," he said. I laughed, and he got pissed, charging at me. I grabbed his arm and wrist and twisted it back. There was a loud snap when his arm broke at the elbow. The knife fell to the ground, and he dropped to his knees, clutching his useless arm. He screamed as if he was waking the dead, so I kicked him hard in the chin to shut him up. He went back, staring at the sky. I figured he was wondering exactly when his day turned into a nightmare. I crouched in front of him and said, "Now listen here, idiot. My name's Robert Blake. If I see you again, I'll put you back on the ground." Got it. He looked at me, fear in his eyes, and nodded. I looked at the girl and said, "You need to get your future husband to the hospital." She replied, "He's not my future husband, just an ex-boyfriend who thinks he owns me. He can stay here and rot." At that moment, we heard police sirens, and she said, "Better stick around. Daddy's going to want a statement from you." I asked Daddy. She answered, "Yeah, the sheriff." Well, to sum it up, Dad really did want a statement, and then offered me a job. I turned him down. The girl was starting her 3rd year of college and went back to school. We never went out, just a quick thank you. I'd see her around town now, and then in the following years, we just exchanged brief hellos. She was usually with another guy, who I assumed was her real fiancé. Now, fast forward 7 years. I still live on the family farm. My grandmother passed away 4 years ago. I've been married for 3 years to a sweet girl I met in Memphis. We're planning to start a family soon since my chicken business has been very successful. Let's talk about that for a bit. A few years ago, I went to a meeting at the rural agent's office about raising chickens for a new plant in a neighboring town. I decided I could start it on our small farm. We only had 40 acres, but the land was good and the road was decent. I started with a house that could accommodate 20,000 chicks. Today, I have 5 houses and raise over 100,000 chicks at a time. I've done well, despite the anger issues, but all of that changed 2 days ago. I was at a seminar in Arkansas. My wife didn't come. She had things to do. The first 2 days were informative, but the last one was just lectures I'd heard the previous year, so I decided to head back early to surprise my wife. The room was paid for another day, so I just left. I was the one who got surprised when I saw a strange car parked behind my house. What the hell is this? I turned off the engine and walked to the house. There was no mistake. The sound was coming from my bedroom when I entered the house. My wife's voice was unmistakable. She was raised up north, and she had what the locals called a Yankee accent. I was furious. How could she do this? We were planning to start a family. The more I heard her screams of passion and her pleas for this guy, whoever he was, to not stop and make it stronger, the angrier I got. I kept a Colt .45 in my office. Inside the house, there was a loaded 16-gauge shotgun in the corner by my side of the bed. The lights were off, and the bedroom door was open. I couldn't see who was with her in the dark, but when I turned on the light, both of them looked at me. It was my cousin, who had just returned from the Navy. She screamed and tried to say something, but I didn't give her a chance. A hollow point round hit her in the bridge of the nose. She started to get up, yelling wait, probably trying to say it was her fault. I didn't care. My next shot hit him behind the ear as he turned to grab the shotgun. I went to the kitchen, quenched my thirst, and got down to work. I found 2 half-empty beer bottles on the table. What a party. I grabbed a beer and sat down, thinking about what I needed to do. Option 1, call the sheriff and confess, then spend the next 25 years in prison. Yeah, right. Option 2, get to work, clean up, bury the bodies in the car, and head back to Little Rock, Arkansas, where the seminar was taking place. I'm betting on option 2. I had 10 hours to do everything and get back in time. I took the bodies to the car, along with the blood-stained sheets. I knew how to operate an excavator, so I started digging a hole, but not just any hole. I dug it exactly where I planned to build the next chicken coop. After taking a shower, I was back in my hotel room just in time for the breakfast meeting without raising any suspicion. I had a meeting with the representatives from the chicken farm. I explained how I was expanding my operation with another chicken coop, even joked about getting home in time to take my wife to a new steakhouse in town. At lunch, I mentioned to some friends that I planned to become a father next year. They made a few jokes about it, and then I went home. When I arrived, I began calling to ask if anyone had seen my wife, Linda. Of course, no one had seen her. My last call was to Roy's mother, my Aunt Brenda. Have you seen or heard from Linda lately? No, I haven't heard anything. Isn't she at home? When I returned from the seminar, she had disappeared, and I couldn't find her. That's strange. Shouldn't you call the sheriff? She asked. I'm sure she'll turn up. She probably went shopping in Memphis. She loves going there once a week. By the way, how is Roy? Roy's a bit confused. You know, he was in Memphis on recruitment duty. He met a girl and fell in love. The problem is, he has to leave for the West Coast and board a ship for a year-long cruise. He's really upset about leaving her. He took leave a few days ago. I think he wants to spend as much time as possible with her before he leaves. I told her to wish him luck and hung up. Roy would spend eternity with his girl, buried under a heap of chicken manure. On Monday morning, I called the sheriff and reported Linda missing. He asked me to come by his office to fill out a missing persons report. I went to town, filled out the form, and then talked to him. Robert, sometimes things happen in a marriage, and one person just needs some time. You know what I mean? Maybe Linda was feeling a little anxious about us starting a family. Maybe she just wanted some time alone to think about being a mother without you bothering her. I bet that's it. If she hasn't turned up by the end of the week, call me and we'll start an investigation. On Friday, I called again to say I still hadn't heard from her. He came to my house with a detective from the SBI, State Bureau of Investigation. I was overseeing the concrete work for the new chicken coop when they arrived. After the introductions and a brief explanation of what I knew, the detective asked if he could inspect the house. I said I was busy, but my housekeeper was there and the sheriff knew her. I told her to let them in. From Lola May's perspective, I had worked for the Bobby family for over 40 years as a housekeeper. I also prepared some meals when needed. I'd always taken care of Bobby since he was a little boy. I knew something was wrong when that lazy, overweight wife of Bobby's told me I could take the rest of the week off after Robert went to that seminar. She even paid me for the time off. When I returned the following Monday, I knew something had happened. After all, the bed sheets had been changed, and the sheets I had put on Friday were gone. They were nowhere to be found. Then I noticed some drops that looked like blood on the mattress. I tried to remove the stain with bleach and turn the mattress over. I also cleaned the floor with a lot of Pine Sol. I wasn't surprised when the sheriff and the detective came by and asked to look around. After finishing the inspection, they asked me to come to the living room to talk. Lola May, it looks like Linda's gone missing. Do you know anything about it? She probably ran off with that boyfriend of hers. Some of her luggage is missing, along with some clothes, makeup, and her hairdryer. First I've heard about this boyfriend, said the detective. Well, don't tell Bobby, but I have my suspicions. I've always done the laundry here, so I noticed some things. Like when she went to Memphis to shop, I'd see her clothes in the dirty laundry basket the next day, smelling like men's cologne, or her panties were always full of something. I never told Bobby because I didn't have proof, just suspicions. We noticed a strange smell in the house today. What is that? Asked the detective. Oh, it's Pine Sol. I cleaned the floors with it every day, or the house would smell like chicken manure. They didn't seem satisfied with the explanation and left. I never heard from them again. And that was good because if what happened is what I imagine, it's better not to talk about it too much.